learning personal finance is like learning any other skill. Hey, welcome to episode 28 of the Extreme Personal Finance Show. My name is Chris. Joining me, my friend Dan.
Hello, how's it going?
All right. And it's cool. We actually are in the same place at the same time, which
Second time now.
I know doesn't happen very often, but it's fun. We can meet together in person to talk about personal finance topics. And there was something that came up last week. You and I were just having a conversation, and we talked about how, learning those personal finance fundamentals. Not everyone starts at the same place, and sometimes you got to start simple, and you can work your way up to more advanced topics. And you had a really great analogy. You compared it to other things, because I think we were having a music discussion.
We're talking about music.
Yeah.
Right?
We're talking about music, and I really liked the way we made that example. And so I kind of want to compare it to that, right? So when you first start, digging into personal finance, you start that journey. You won't be a master right out the gate, right? You got to start somewhere. And so with patience and consistency and practice, you can build a pretty strong financial kind of foundation to meet your financial goals, like whether you're saving a down payment for a car, down payment for a house, you want to start investing, you need to pay off credit card debt, whatever those goals are. And I found it really interesting that, again, if you start simple and set some realistic goals, we can help, I think, others kind of not be so overwhelmed. And it was great because you made this comparison to other things, right? Other hobbies or other skills that people may have. And we were having a music discussion. So I liked that comparison because it kind of hit home, right? Like me, I try to run before I can walk, right? So I just started, I just went to the first guitar lesson that I've been to in 25 years. And, I get frustrated because I can't rip out that freaking face melting guitar solo, right? Immediately.
Yeah.
But if you start with basic stuff, basic chords, I continue to practice regularly over time, then pretty soon I'll be able to sweep through those solos like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at finance and whether it's tracking spending or budgeting or saving or investing, kind of the same way, where you start in the very beginning, simple, and kind of work our way up to it, people can make it happen.
Right.
So let's go to you. I mean, because you came up with this, and I thought it was a great way to compare it.
Well, couple of things with what you said is just very common for how we talk about these things is basic and simple, right? Because yes, on one hand, it's true, you can look at them as basic and simple, but where I think sometimes we confuse the issue a little bit is by thinking that basic and simple is not as valuable because, it's basic, or that's the simple stuff. I need to do this thing that's of more importance, when really you're basic and you're simple. Perhaps a better, more appropriate word is foundational, right? Exactly. And where it's just you can't go and do all these fancier things if you don't have a really solid foundation. Even just thinking about an amazing building or whatnot, you can't make all those amazing and intricate parts of that architecture if the foundation isn't good, right? So they might seem basic and simple, but that doesn't mean they're not of just as much, if not more, importance than some of the other things. So I think that's one thing to just kind of throw out there is when we're thinking about our personal finance and how to become successful with that. And by successful, I don't even mean becoming super wealthy or anything. I just mean to where you can live your life and enjoy it and have family and friends, and you have a sense of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. That's successful, right? And being successful in your personal finance is just really taking your time at first and understanding the foundational elements of it, and just step by step going a little bit more and a little bit more until you have this larger understanding of the whole financial picture, right?
Sure, sure. And that's the thing too. Like, I'm going back to basics, right? But I look at it like you said, it's fundamentals. And I'm learning some of those fundamental things um going to my guitar lesson, right? I mean, I literally was
Yeah.
looking at a staff and I was going like every good boy does fine. Like, I was learning that it was like, oh, I was like 10 years old again, right?
Right.
But it's that thing where my mindset is it's the fundamentals. I got to get these down so then I can work my way up to the more intermediate and advanced things. And I think, one tip that we can start with just to get started is maybe just like tracking your expenses. I think better understanding where your money goes every month is a great foundational step
Mhm.
to understanding effective budgeting, and that can help you down the path with everything else you may have as your part of your financial
Yeah,
goals.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, because you got to think if you don't know how much that you spend every month and then therefore every year, you don't know what to shoot for,
Hmm.
you know. Not to say that when we go to get education or get employment that we shouldn't, try and push ourselves and aim for a certain amount, say of income or work-life balance or however it is you
Sure.
want to think about it. Um, but if you don't know what is that number that you need to hit for your goals, then you might be chasing after the wrong thing. You may be putting in more hours at a job that you don't really enjoy than you need to because you
Right.
think that, well, I need to make X number of dollars. So it's to your point, what are your actual expenses is a foundational point because then that's what kind of can inform the other decisions that you make of
Hmm.
of a career path and how much you need to save and all that stuff.
Sure. So another key foundational concept too is really making sure you have realistic financial goals, whatever that may be. And I know another great example of how we can compare that to everyday life is through like fitness and exercise, right?
Mhm.
So like, you know, people like a marathon runner, for example, well, they're not going to run that marathon overnight, right?
Right.
It requires consistent effort, gradually increasing intensity, pushing yourself to the max, but it's like one of those things where you start small and continue to save. So one of the things too you could do, for instance, is set those realistic goals, something like if you're going to save or invest, 3% or 5% of your income, and then gradually increase it over time, right? That's one example of how, you can start small and then work your way up. So definitely something where it's not going to happen overnight.
Right. Right. Well, I think to that extent too, something that you could think is marathon training or any kind of fitness training is a good example of it is more important than what your weightlifting regimen is or your it's like, well, what's your running plan,
Mhm.
do you do pacing days or do you do recovery runs or this or that or whatever. The most important thing is putting on your shoes and going
Exactly.
outside, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it doesn't, all the rest of it doesn't matter if that you've planned everything out and then you're like, cool, but now I'm going to go sit down and watch TV or take a nap or
Right.
do whatever. It's like it doesn't matter. You have the perfect plan, but taking action on it
That's a
is going
big
to be more
piece, right?
important.
Taking
Yeah.
action for sure. And another one too is just, and again, I know, we know that sometimes personal finance may not be the most exciting thing to
What are you
learn.
talking about? It's the best.
It's the best. But I look at like this is another great thing that we can compare it to is being able to keep going even though you may be discouraged because of setbacks or
Mm-hmm.
keep trying to better yourself, improve yourself, keep on learning and educating yourself, right? And one great example is something like learning a new language, right? You go and learn a new language, it involves everything from memorizing vocabulary stuff to understanding different pieces of grammar, but not only that, but practicing actual speaking, which I've tried. I can't enunciate anything. Um, but the thing is, you're gonna make mistakes in the process,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's really the key is to keep learning and things like educating yourself, right? Reading books, listening to podcasts, reading blogs, like like Heavy Metal Money, listening to podcasts like the Extreme Personal Finance Show, or going to like meetup groups,
Yep.
right? Or other workshops or things that will continue to help you learn and get more. I guess the big thing is to have more confidence as you
Sure.
keep going,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. One thing I think with the confidence side is, and actually ties into what you're talking about
Mhm.
before about realistic goals and expectations and whatnot. Um, you see this a lot in anything, right? And I don't know if it's, I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's an American thing
Mhm.
or if it's a people thing. I'm not really sure. Um, but we will look at the people who are quote unquote professionals in something, right? Like a professional musician or a professional Major League Baseball player or anything of that nature. And if we don't see ourselves being able to achieve that level of talent in it, quite often it's just like, well, then I'm just not going to
Mm,
bother,
mm,
and there's, I've been playing trombone for 30 years and I'm decently good at it, but there's a whole lot of really great music you can do at a fairly beginner level. And it's
mm.
just about enjoying the thing that you are doing. You don't have to be at that pro level.
Sure.
And then so I feel like a lot of people do that too with their finances, is they will see, the Joneses,
Mhm.
right? Or
Right.
somebody who's just insanely wealthy and be like, well, I don't have, and then it's a little bit of a limiting belief. They might say, I was like, I will not ever have.
Right.
And so what is the point in doing any of it without really thinking through? It's just like, well, okay, no, most of us aren't going to be Bezos or, Bill Gates and have that kind of wealth to do
Right.
something with. But that doesn't mean that wherever we do end up won't be a really good place to be,
Sure.
right? And so I feel like sometimes, we have this idea of, well, if I'm not at this level, then I'm just
Right.
not going to do it. It's like, well, let's try to get away from that mindset.
Well, and also I think that kind of leads to another topic too, where um, having patience and being consistent is like a big thing. And I think that I always love this example, the example about kind of sowing seeds for future crops.
Mhm.
And it really, I mean, I kind of had that when I first discovered kind of personal finance, like 2016, when I started to get serious about it. That comparison really kind of hit home for me because, like for instance, a garden doesn't just bloom overnight. You got to plant the seeds. You got to like nurture them. You got to water them. You got to take care of them. They got to get the proper sunlight. Like all of the things waiting for growth and investing and saving and stuff. It's kind of like the same thing, right? Like
Absolutely.
you get discouraged because you're not seeing things happen
Right.
right away, but it's like consider those long-term investments, those things like retirement accounts. If you're fortunate enough to have a 401k or a 403b, it's looking at steadily contributing over time
Mhm.
to give you the return later on in life.
Right. I think actually investing is probably even harder than than the gardening and then a lot of other things, because just the way compound interest works and the time period,
Sure.
it's not really going to be until much closer to when you. So if say you're really ahead of the curve and you're watching this and you're in your 20s,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Uh, and you're like, okay, I don't even want to worry about being one of those super financial independent people. I
Yeah.
just want to do good savings and have a career and then retire when I'm 55, 60, whatever. Okay. Even from that viewpoint, you won't really see the real power of that compounding interest until you're towards the end there. So you're
Right.
like 50, 55, 60 right at the end,
Right.
just because that's when those accounts will start to double again. But when you're younger and it doubles from 500 to $1,000, it's like, okay. But when it doubles from 500,000 to the million, you're like, oh my God,
Exactly.
So it's super tough to kind of really visualize it,
Mhm.
but it's when you gotta, just understand those fundamentals and
Yeah.
why it does work that
And
way, so
trust
you
the
can trust
process.
into it.
Trust the process.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you'll more be better able to trust that process by understanding those fundamentals that we talked
Right.
about.
And sometimes too, as you're going along the path, you may have to make adjustments along the way. Everything from, your retirement planning to just budgeting in general. Like I like using the example of like basically perfecting a recipe, right?
Okay.
So one, I am not proficient in the kitchen. Like I am not a good cook, but every now and then I'll make something. It's not very good, but I can tweak it. I can
Sure.
change it, right? And eventually, like I made these pork chops once that were absolutely amazing, and but it took trial and error.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the thing is, it's like sometimes your budget or your planning will also take some kind of recurring check-in. Like how am I doing? Am I on track? Maybe you got to make some
Sure.
adjustments along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things too is overcoming uh, those challenges. And I think I also just want to help others understand too that it's okay to ask for help. And sometimes you may need to find a financial planner, financial advisor, a counselor, um, or mentor, right? Like again, if you can continue to learn and maybe go to meetups where you can work with others to kind of maintain that balance around, you want this to kind of become second nature for you, right? Where it's not such an overwhelming thing. I mean, think of it as like riding a bike. Right. When you first start riding a bike, you're all wobbly and shit. And I just said that word. You're all wobbly and you like, that's all right. Remember, we have the explicit badge.
Yeah.
But you're all wobbly and you fall down, right? You have no balance. But eventually you found your balance, right? And it's like, that's kind of like when you start to review your finances and your financial plan, it can be super overwhelming and daunting at first. But when you start saving and spending, and pretty soon it's just going to be a seamless part of your life and you just do it. And then it gives you so much more freedom to do the things you want to do, spend money on the things you want to spend money on. And then you're also setting yourself up for success to retire in the end. So I think it's okay to like ask for help when you need it. A professional may help you hit that goal.
100%.
And I think one of the last things that I just want to mention too is we have to remember to take time to celebrate those small wins too along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it really does get discouraging and it's hard to maintain your plan because you're not, you reach those little milestones. Like maybe it's just getting $1,000 in emergency fund, right? You know what? Celebrate. Go out to eat. At least, go get a dinner, whatever. Maybe you're a gamer. Go spend money on Steam and get that one video game you want to play. Whatever.
Yeah, you can only be in the grind for so long consistently before you need a little bit of a break from it, and to, like you said, celebrate the accomplishments and acknowledge the hard work that you've been doing.
Once I can crush the killer riff for Battery from Metallica, I will celebrate. I'm not sure what I'll do yet, but I'll celebrate.
Just go outside and play it for all your neighbors.
Oh, I'll do that. Yes, exactly. So again, I want to thank you everyone for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Dan, for hiking up to my neck of the woods.
No, not too far. It's a gorgeous drive, actually.
Awesome. Are the leaves starting to go now?
Yeah, a good bit.
That's awesome.
I see pictures every now and again of further up north, like Lutsen and whatnot.
Yeah.
And part of me wants to drive up there and check it out. But part of me also remembers reading a couple of comments about how just the traffic because of everybody going up there to check it out.
Sure.
So I'll wait for the ones around here to change and just enjoy it down here.
Right on. Yeah, I switched off. I know a few years ago I did like the St. Croix River cruise to check out all the leaves. Yeah. Last year I did the Osceola train to see the leaves, which was kind of cool. I did that with my daughter and it was really cool. So yeah, we got some pretty cool leaves north of the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. It can be pretty beautiful up there. So, but again, we appreciate you guys watching, listening. Please like, subscribe, share wherever you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel. And the best thing you could do that we'd absolutely love is share it with somebody that you could actually think would find value in our podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See you.